Well, we will cover some other topics, but we do have to talk about the FBI a little bit more. Let's go ahead and bring in our DC reporter, Rebeka Zeljko, because Rebeka, you wrote the story that we were talking about earlier on the show, and it's not even up at theblaze.com yet. This is a sneak peek right now for our audience. So tell us, what's the reality of what's happening inside the Bureau right now?
Yeah, as you mentioned, there is quite a bit going on, but based on some of the sources I spoke with today and yesterday, we are getting a bit of a clearer picture, at least in terms of what some of the rank and file and some of the former FBI agents and whistleblowers have to say about the agency. A lot of the sources that I spoke with, again, many of whom were former FBI or who were FBI whistleblowers, and some of which even spoke with us on the condition of anonymity because of just how strongly they felt about the agency, basically said that not much has changed. Their feeling is that they were promised these change agents in the form of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, and they were extremely optimistic, I think, as many of us are and were, and because they are, of course, on our team, and they were kind of like the ideal picks to head these institutions leading up to their nomination and their subsequent confirmation. We were all really hopeful. They basically spent their entire career criticizing the Bureau and just the establishment DC in general, and so this was an extremely promising nomination, and I think a lot of us were really enthusiastic, as were they. And of course, this has only been 5 months. Their tenure is still really fresh, and so I want to be fair here. But based on some of the sources I spoke with, they felt that not a lot has been done, or not enough even. They said that the status quo is pretty much still the lay of the land in the department, and that they were really excited to see some more significant changes, and they say that they haven't quite seen that pan out. But again, it's only been 5 months, and some of the other sources that I spoke with, and I don't want to give too much away because, as you mentioned, the story is still in the works. But some sources I spoke to, one in particular who works really closely with the director, he said that he reminded me that, again, it's only been 5 months, and you can't just go in there, waltz in there, and wave a magic wand expecting all of these problems to go away. He pointed to some of the progress that's already been made, restructuring the agency a bit and moving some agents around, kind of decentralizing the DC presence and ensuring that at the end of the day, they're doing their job, which is catching the bad guys. It's not an easy feat to root out all of the rot and the decay and gut the agency as they promised, while simultaneously doing the tasks that they were asked to do when they had the department. And so it's a tall task, and of course there are going to be some critics, but I was reminded by other sources that it's important to be optimistic. So two sides to every coin.
It's going to be a must-read story when it does come out. Everybody needs to go to theblaze.com and look for it. But let's go ahead and get to the courts, because they had a huge ruling come down today. The Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that federal judges no longer have the authority to issue those sweeping nationwide injunctions that we all hate. Only plaintiffs with standing are protected. So here's Donald Trump on the ruling.
This morning, the Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law in striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch. The Supreme Court has stopped the presidency itself. That's what they've done. And really, it's been an amazing period of time this last hour.
So, Rebeka, have we finally reined in all these district court judges that have acted like they were more powerful than the president?
That's the hope. I think this ruling is kind of a death blow to all of those rogue agents, or those rogue judges rather, who felt that they were the ones to lead the cause, and that they in fact are defenders of democracy, even though ironically they were going against the administration that decisively won in November. I think we all remember when President Trump had probably the most insane political comeback in history. He swept all 7 swing states and of course won the popular vote. I can't think of a more decisive electoral outcome than that. And so of course you have Democrats and judges that align themselves with Democrats and the party that are saying that they are the beacon of democracy, they are defenders of the democracy, and that the Republicans are the ones that are trying to undermine the American people and the voters, when the irony, of course, is that they are standing in the way of the mandate that the president was overwhelmingly elected to implement. And so it's really astonishing to see the reaction from the left, but of course it's a victory for us, so we're happy here.
Stephen Miller, tell us how he's been trolling the leftists. It's one of the best things to ever watch is Stephen Miller out there on X or in any interviews that he's doing. So what was he up to today?
Yeah, I knew that there was going to be some SCOTUS rulings issued today, and I knew exactly the moment that those became public because my X feed was just flooded with photos of Stephen Miller sort of grinning in the background of different Getty images. And that is, of course, because there are two things that he cares about the most, and that is mass deportations and reining in rogue judges. So I think this is probably the best day ever for not just the administration, but for Stephen Miller. And when I checked his profile, I was not disappointed. He, in particular, retweeted a bunch of posts and was pointing to the opinion that was written by Justice Amy Coney Barrett, in particular in response to Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's opinion. And she basically said, and I'm paraphrasing here, she said it in a much more eloquent way than I'm about to put it, but she basically said, "This is too stupid to even respond to. I'm not going to dwell on this opinion. You don't have, on our side, we have 200 years of, we just have 200 years of precedent. But not only that, the Constitution itself, it was not even an argument worth entertaining, is basically what she said. And of course, what Stephen Miller reiterated on his social media. And so it's been very enjoyable to watch the left sort of freak out about this decision. And it's been equally entertaining to see how figures on the right, particularly Stephen Miller, have been relishing this most recent SCOTUS decision.
So it might be the best day for Stephen Miller. It is certainly not the best day for
Ever.
Chris Bedford, though. He left here last night. I don't even know if he's made it back to Washington, D.C. yet. His plane got rerouted, but he did write a Beltway brief. And this is, how the sausage is getting made in Washington, D.C. We've been talking about it all week. The Senate parliamentarian is making cuts. So, Rebeka, why is everybody still freaking out?
Everyone is freaking out, and as Bedford put it well, I think there's no reason to be freaking out. If anyone should be freaking out, it's Bedford. As you pointed out, he's actually not even back in the district, as far as I'm aware. He might as well have just Ubered. It probably would have been quicker. But again, back to the parliamentarian. I mean, there's all these different lawmakers, particularly on the Senate side, who are pointing to the parliamentarian, sort of pointing the finger at her, blaming her for ruling against a lot of provisions that are extremely popular, not just with conservatives, but with American voters. Most recently, the Medicaid example is, I think, probably the most prominent ruling that's been the talk of the town. And that is because the Medicaid reforms are actually what got a lot of Republicans to back the bill in the first place. And so you have House Republicans saying, if this changes, we're not going to vote for it at all. This bill is dead on arrival. Then you have Senate Republicans pointing at the parliamentarian and saying, well, it wasn't us, it was her. But it's important to remind the audience that the parliamentarian really serves in an advisory role. She doesn't have the final say in terms of what is actually included in the bill text. It's the senators who serve on the committees and are in the negotiating rooms and are actually tasked with ironing out these details. They're the ones that are in charge of what is or is not in the bill text. And of course, these rulings, what she's ruling against is whether or not a specific provision violates the Byrd rule. And in short, that basically just means, does this provision have anything to do with the budget? If not, it's extraneous and we cannot include it in the bill text. Now, a lot of procedural jargon here, but basically, again, this is an advisory ruling. So that means that a senator would have to actually go to the floor, raise a point of order on that specific provision, and then the chair rules whether or not it actually violates the Byrd rule based on the suggestion of the parliamentarian. And the chair can rule in favor of or against it. It's been partisan in the past. It's not unusual. But again, I think that Chip Roy actually hit the nail on the head, and he said all the people freaking out about the parliamentarian and pointing the finger at her should take a good look in the mirror, because it's the senators who are in charge of what the text actually says, and they can rewrite different provisions to effectively do the same thing without violating the Byrd rule. It's really just kind of this push and pull, and nothing is final until it is final. So there's no sense in freaking out over the parliamentarian's rulings until the bill is actually up for a vote.
Rebeka Zeljko, great stuff as always. Thoughts and prayers to Chris Bedford and his travel plans
Thoughts and
right now.
prayers.